thank you for that fantastic talk, Aaron.
Thank
Um,
you.
it was delightful. I haven't played Blaseball before. I think after that talk, I am now very interested. Seems incredible. So for the first question, it's interesting that a game that's so full of surreal horror has such a strong, deliberate lean towards inclusion. A black
Yeah.
hole as a weather pattern is terrifying, and but then on the other hand, you have Carlbot doing like vibe checks and baseball cares donating. And how do you explain the close connection that brings all of that together?
Yeah, there's I was a thing I would have talked about if I had more time. And I think there's like this inherent inclusion that sort of happens in these like surreal horror universes that are, kind of like us, but also like blatantly terrifying instead of having to dig for it all, right?
Mhm.
I think another example, like idea is if you've heard of Welcome to Night Vale, has a similar setting of like this desert town in somewhere USA that every conspiracy theory is true, right? And I think these environments sort of just create inclusion or create an environment where you can just talk about things like, well, whether it's LGBT or racial or what have you, that's just they become very normal by comparison of like black holes open up periodically or there's a hellmouth just outside of town, right? Like oh yeah, so yeah, no, it makes sense. Like one of the characters is a literal human hand. Yeah, of course, why not? They can have a relationship with whoever they want. Who cares?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I love it. Like I love being able to go into this weird world that's already so out there that makes like, oh well, my struggles are fairly normalized at this point.
Yeah, it's interesting in like in that sort of strange and otherworldly area. Like you said, it's the daily stuff just sort of is like
Yeah.
it's just part of it just rolls in. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
So yeah, awesome. So on the note of like Carlbot and everything, what are some of your favorite things that Carlbot does for the community?
Um, those are kind of the great things. Carl Bot is just sort of the nice, like, let me dump stuff in automatically.
Mhm.
There's other tie-ins that are more technical and sort of gameplay related, where I think Carl, or maybe there's other bots. I don't remember. There's lots of bots that interact in the Discord. It's a big, well-exercised Discord that's fully boosted and all that sort of thing. So they've got like bots that Cyber has built as well that'll sort of dump stuff in that you can opt into for a while. And before the game got overly complex by design, Cyber has kind of created their own version of Blaseball, so they can run the simulators through without the like time delays. So it would like take the actual games and be like, okay, well, here's what Blaseball says is the predicted percentage of win between the teams, but here's what we saw after like 10 games, right? Like, so it can kind of give these back and forth of like really digging down, or you can ask it like, hey, do some math for me about my like snack optimization.
Mhm.
Some of which is in like the Cyber side Discord, and some of it's in the main Discord to try and keep these things separate for folks. But yeah, there's some really neat tools that have gotten built.
Yeah. Well, that's so cool. That's and automation, of course, is like such a huge topic for all of us. So
Yeah.
like, and you've mentioned it's such a large Discord, and like
Mhm.
automation is a key part of how you kind of keep things running smoothly and stuff. Like, so what's aside from Carlbot, do you have like another favorite bot or?
Well, probably the cyber stuff because it makes me the most in-game currency. But also, like I think there's little automation stuff like each team. So because I'm core mechanics teamed, that's the Discord stuff that I get. I don't have all of the team's places. I just have my little community. So when you join and like click your team, that's where it puts you. And like all that has to be automated for the amount of people that come in and out. Like you can't manually assign permissions.
Mhm.
So that's kind of neat. And there's also options like the reps can get a little bit more to kind of hop between teams and talk to other folks that allow us to do things like, we're all very friendly. So sometimes you have like great games, which are all made up simulated stuff, but we're all building the story as we go. And we're like, oh, that was amazing. And so it's like, find ways for the Hawaii Fridays and the core mechanics to get together when we're like breaking the league record on most number of innings, for instance, and that kind of stuff. So yeah, lots of stuff that automates that permission-y thing to help folks move around and build community without having it be so noisy that you're just overwhelmed by like, where do I hang out?
Interesting. Yeah. Building like a community that's easy for people to kind of engage in at their
Yeah.
levels and everything. And
And
awesome.
that's why I like that entry point that's like, hey, here's where to get the vibes. Like, here's where you
Mhm.
can find out stuff. You can type this to get reminders on things. And then everyone is super friendly and will answer. I've seen some of the same questions come up over and over again, but there's always a new person and there's always someone who hasn't answered it before. So it's always very friendly on answering beginner questions a lot.
That's fantastic. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think everyone is very curious to hear about the sagas of both Sam and Steve and Jalen Hot Dog Fingers, two of the best
Yeah.
names.
See, so Sam and Steve is not even in the game, which is great. He is all aside, but it came all into digging like that quote I pulled out. There are fans who compile statistics or draw fan art or both, and some fans uncover hidden secrets in 25-year-old salmon modeling software. So I'm trying to remember where their dig into it was. Oh, right. So because that RIV became the sort of rest in violence, there was like this kind of nerdy discussion going on of like, oh, what's something about file extensions came up, and they're like, oh, what's RIV is a file extension? Like, what does that mean? Like, is that one that already exists? So they look it up and find out that .riv was used by this crisp harvest model for like rivers or something like that. So like .riv. So they're digging in like, well, what is this software? And they find like this old 8-bit map stuff. I don't know if like sharing screens will break stuff, but they find this old 8-bit map stuff and they start digging through the assets and they find this little 8-bit picture that just says Steve underneath it. And they're like, who the heck is like, what is going on? Like, what is this weird Easter egg? And they actually managed to track down the author of the software and like find Steve because they wanted to use it to like, they're like, oh, let's, put baseball stuff all over the map. Let's hack it and do cool things with it. So they managed to find Steve and tell him about this, who's like, that is hilarious and fun. I wrote this software. Like my portrait was a little Easter egg I just buried when I was building the mapping. So he eventually like came into the Blaseball Discord to like hang out with folks and like played for a little while and told people about salmon harvest modeling and all this sort of stuff. So that you can read. I think the link I gave there is a link to the whole story as told by the people involved. But yeah, just this hilarious like. I wonder why question mixed with, computer nerd curiosity that uncovered this whole like, hey, we're contacting you because you wrote software like 25 years ago. Right. Yeah.
That's
Long, I'm sure he hasn't thought of it in like a decade, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's testament to the community too, as well. That he joined in and like joined a team for a little bit and hung out with y'all and everything. Yeah. Like that's so cool. What about Jalen Hot Dog Fingers? Yeah.
So I think I said ask me about it and then proceeded to explain the story. But the gist of it was Jalen it's actually got incinerated really early on, like outside. He was the first one to get incinerated outside of a game because it happened in retribution for. In the first season, our like votes or what we could do at the end of Blaseball, was open the forbidden book, which of course, internet people, right? So like we opened the forbidden book, and in punishment, he got incinerated outside of the game. So like didn't even have a chance. This like awesome name star pitcher that everyone falls in love with just disappears. So when they introduced idols and like people putting together, like, well, if he's on our team. He has to be able to play, right? So we could come back from the dead. Like, and so all this like combination of like hatching the worst made plans, of like just going for it. And the devs doubling it down on it was great too. There's another story that's told too of like one of the most popular players for a while was named first name pitching, last name machine, who was a really good pitcher, which all came about because the LA Unlimited Tacos tried to see what would happen if they shelled all of their pitchers, which normally prevents them from like pitching in a game. So the devs just gave them a character named Pitching Machine who would pitch for them every game. Like it was fantastic.
Incredible. That's delightful. It's such there's so much space for creativity there.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
finding new ways to kind of grow that. Yeah. So I want to get the dad joke in. So what happens to baby geese when they grow up?
I don't know.
They grow down.
Oh.
Had to feather that one in there a little bit. With all the technological tools, we'll try to get one last one in before the DevOps games. With all the technological tools available for creating good community, is there a guideline with what to do with in-person groups or work teams? Do you have any resource ideas for that?
Yeah, well, I think some of the organizational methods are kind of global, right?
Mhm.
Like when you're organizing lots of people, there's some things are just going to continue consistently work.
Mhm.
I like the ideas of the temp checks and having these things like in any group. I just loved that idea when I ran across it. I was like, oh, this is
Yeah.
great. That allows anyone to kind of pop in and normalizes the, especially if it's not an uncomfortable person that has to initiate it, right? Like if there's a conversation going on, you notice someone in the group who's like maybe not participating or seems to have suddenly shrunk back. Like it's probably a good opportunity to make sure everyone's on board with the conversation where we're going and people can participate instead of feeling like they're being pushed out.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that was it too, right? I think the combination of uh, why do we have these codes of conducts are super important. Like I think that was pretty well stated in there. But then there's also the step we can go further of creating welcoming spaces and inviting people into it that maybe aren't the defaults, right? And so saying,
Yeah.
no, you
Yeah.
specifically, yes, you are welcome here. Please come and join us. Yeah,
Awesome.
here's how we
Yeah.
can protect you. Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, and providing that space. All right, I'm getting numbers from the organizers.
Yeah,
I think we gotta wrap up. But thank you so much for the
yeah.
talk and being here for the QA and everything.
Yeah. And I'll be at DevOps Days party games too, turns out. So make sure everyone comes and
Fantastic.
joins that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we'll be dropping a link if we haven't already in the general chat for everybody to go on and join there. And yeah, awesome. Thank you again. Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Aaron.
thanks.
Been a
Thanks.
pleasure.
Bye.